When Britain's next Prime Minister takes office after elections on the 4th of July, after he's finished with the obligatory photo shoot outside Number 10, he'll be sat down at a desk to write sealed letters to the commanders of Britain's nuclear missile submarines. It's the first thing every British Prime Minister does, and in happier times, it will just be part of the ritual of the transfer of power. But these are not ordinary times. The Bulletin of the atomic scientist Doomsday Clock, an index of the perceived danger of nuclear war, is set at 90 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been. The United Nations Secretary General this month warned we are on a nuclear knife edge. And everybody is building more bombs. Global spending on nuclear weapons was up 13% last year. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, told my colleague Joe Barnes this week that China is likely to have 1,000 nuclear warheads, doubling its arsenal by the end of the decade. How have we got to this point? What can be done to avert disaster? Or is nuclear apocalypse now inevitable?
At the same time, an automatic system known as carrier control is relaying the message to 15,000 warning points throughout the country. Now it is only a matter of seconds before the nation knows it's fighting for survival.
Here is an emergency announcement.
In 2023, the Association for Arms Control estimated there are about 12,500 nuclear warheads in the world. Most of those belong to the United States and Russia, who have around 5,000 each. The rest, in descending size of arsenal, belong to China, France, the United Kingdom, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. All around the world, we're seeing an escalation in nuclear rhetoric. In Europe, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told my colleague Joe Barnes that the alliance is discussing deploying more nuclear weapons as a means to deter Russia and China. His remarks were angrily denounced in Moscow, but to be fair, they only came after Vladimir Putin ordered drills of Russia's tactical nuclear weapons, and casually remarked that Russia has many more tactical nuclear weapons than there are on the European continent, even if the United States brings theirs over. Europe does not have a developed early warning system, he added. In this sense, they're more or less defenseless.
If we are attacked by nuclear weapons, these are the warning sounds you must recognize.
In the Middle East, Iran has long denied seeking a nuclear bomb. In fact, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei issued a fatwa banning nuclear weapons. But on May the 8th this year, Kamal Karzai, an advisor to Mr. Khamenei, said, "We have no decision to build a nuclear bomb, but should Iran's existence be threatened, there will be no choice but to change our military doctrine." Bear in mind the International Atomic Energy Agency now thinks Iran has enough material to build a bomb within about a month of the decision being made. And then there's this, from the Atlantic Council report on the dangers of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. The conflict would be fought on a scale and with an intensity that would severely test both Chinese and US allied and partner conventional forces, potentially to the breaking point. That scale and intensity would mean either side might consider the limited use of nuclear weapons to secure victory or prevent defeat. So that's just 3 potential flashpoints: Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia. We haven't even mentioned India's long-running confrontation with Pakistan, or India's border pursuit with China, or even North Korea. Nuclear weapons are generally thought of in terms of deterrence. In other words, countries want weapons to scare off potential adversaries, not to actually use them. And nuclear diplomacy is based on 3 C's. Capability: do you have working warheads and a means of delivering them? Credibility: do you have the will to actually use them? And communication: are your adversaries aware of the above? Part of that communication is theatre. In Britain's case, it means maintaining a permanent at-sea deterrent and making sure the world knows it. That's what allows the Royal Navy to claim that Trident is great value for money. Far from being a weapon that is never used, as opponents of nuclear weapons often say, it is in fact a weapon that is used every day, simply by existing. But as the world divides into opposing camps, communication is breaking down. Let's take Russia. Does it have the capability? Absolutely. The largest nuclear arsenal in the world. Credibility? Yes. Russians are generally viewed as rational actors with a well-developed nuclear doctrine. They're thought to know what they're doing and know when they would use their weapons. The communication, this is where things begin to fall down. Vladimir Putin is not shy about advertising Russia's nuclear capabilities or his own willingness to use them if necessary. The problem comes in understanding when he's serious and when he isn't. The collapse of military, diplomatic and political contact since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine means both Russia and the West have fewer avenues to communicate their own intentions and try to understand what the other wants. So let's say Vladimir Putin gets the idea that NATO's nuclear deterrent is out of date, or that Western leaders don't really have the will to follow through with their own nuclear doctrine. It's easy to imagine a scenario where he miscalculates, perhaps by setting off a relatively small bomb on the battlefield of Ukraine because he thinks his enemies lack the will or the ability to respond. And that works the other way too. One reason some Western governments are so reluctant to provide Ukraine with advanced weapons is fear that they're going to miscalculate Russia's own nuclear intentions, that they're somehow going to cross one of the Kremlin's red lines. Now, to be fair, Russia, the United States, and Britain are fairly well practiced at reading one another's nuclear signals. But the problem of communication is magnified when it comes to places like North Korea or Iran, where the United States, for example, doesn't even have an embassy. And what if even more countries seek the bomb?
The question mark formed by the cloud itself poses the problem.
Let's look at those three flashpoints again. In Europe, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has provided a pretty brutal reminder of the value of having your own nuclear deterrent. Could Ukraine seek a bomb on its own? It would be expensive and difficult to do so without alienating the allies it relies on for defence, so it seems unlikely. There is an outside chance Poland or Germany might develop a bomb to improve their own deterrence, but what's more likely is that Britain and France, the European powers with existing arsenals, will expand their own nuclear deterrence and perhaps agree to extend their umbrella to other allies. When North Korea got a bomb in 2006, it didn't spark an arms race in East Asia, but that could change. In 2023, South Korea's president suggested the country might seek its own bomb, and China's nuclear arsenal is the fastest growing in the world. The most serious danger is in the Middle East. Iran does not yet have a bomb, but it has enough nuclear material to build one in probably about a month if it chose to do so. Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman has made clear that if Iran gets a bomb, his country will get one too. And he's not alone. Remember, Israel already has an undeclared arsenal. And Rafael Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, recently made an unexpected visit to Syria, apparently to ensure Bashar Assad does not consider joining the regional arms race.
Allahu Akbar.
So we seem to be heading into a world with more nuclear powers, more nuclear weapons, and less understanding of one another's intentions. But could they really be used? Deterrence is often referred to as a ladder. Before we get to actually using bombs, the theatre on the lower rungs has to play out. Way, way up the ladder, the ultimate act in the performance would be a return to nuclear testing, and that is not as impossible as you might think. Russia left the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 2023. Hawkish commentators in Moscow have already called for a demonstrative explosion. Sometime in the next few years, we may see a big explosion on Novaya Zemlya, the old Soviet testing ground in the Arctic. Robert O'Brien, a former national security advisor to Donald Trump, wrote an article calling for the United States to resume live nuclear testing. Most experts think we're still a long way from that, but last week I spoke to Mr. Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and in a sense the world's nuclear policeman. It's his job to stop peaceful nuclear programs being used to build bombs. But the thing he really wanted to draw attention to was a general rise in nuclear rhetoric. The more world leaders talk about using nuclear weapons, he said, the more the idea becomes somewhat normalized. And the more it's normalized, the more comfortable we become talking about nuclear weapons. He fears the more likely one of us is to actually use one. Just talking like this, he said, is incredibly dangerous for human civilization. But that's just the problem. For deterrence to work, leaders have to talk about their bombs and how willing they are to use them. And if that seems quite mad, it's probably because it is. Defence in Depth is a regular video output by the Telegraph of the big defence stories. If you'd like a daily fix of content about the war in Ukraine, I'd suggest Ukraine the Latest, the Telegraph's podcast. For more defence stories, we've left links in the description below, and if you have a topic you would like us to cover, let us know in the comments. Please do visit our website for the latest updates, news and analysis, or failing that, you could buy the paper.